Does anybody ever stop and think about how profoundly unscientific these food recommendations by our governments are?
Carnival.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Canada's food guide for 2019 is completely and utterly and definitely profoundly unscientific. It rejects reality and scientific discovery. The reality is that, well, we're omnivores. We've evolved eating lots of meat, lots of animal products, and a good amount of plants. That's who we are. We cannot get all the essential nutrients from plants. Thus, we must eat animal products. Thus, this makes us obligate carnivores. If you cannot get all of your nutrition from plants, and you must eat meat in order to survive, scientific fact. I'm not talking about individuals necessarily. I'm talking about as a species with our reproductive health intact for many generations to come, right? Which would explain to you, if you look at it for what it is, you take that standard to analyzing any dietary approach. Well, I mean, that would explain to you why there have never been vegan societies on this planet, plant-based, 100% plant-based societies. That's why, because it's impossible. So looking at it from our evolutionary development, if you will, as a species, well, we have to eat meat in order to survive because we always have. We've never done it any other way, right? And then you look at the science, what we've been able to discover, like the fact that you cannot get all of your essential nutrients from plants, but you can get all of them from animal foods. Well, that corroborated our suspicion, as if we didn't already know, as if we needed science to corroborate this, that we are carnivorous omnivores, obligate carnivores. We must eat meat in order to survive and thrive as a species. Just because some weirdo mutant out there popping all kinds of big pharma pills, shooting himself up with all kinds of needles, just because that freak can maintain okay before he completely disintegrates by the age of 60, childless, that doesn't fucking mean that this is good for us. Right? So you got a food that's most ancestral globally, so most universal, most bioavailable, most nutrient dense, easiest to digest. The only food that contains all the vitamins and minerals and everything else, macronutrients included, that we need in order to survive and thrive. You got that food group, and you got this other supplementary food group that's essentially been, well, supplementary and or starvation food throughout our history. That food is going to take precedence on this plate, and the food that's best for us and makes the most sense to eat is going to slowly wither away. And you're going to call that good for us? No, it's pseudoscientific. It's ridiculous. Not only does it assume that we're all the same, as if some people couldn't eat peanuts, as if some people couldn't eat oxalate-rich foods such as spinach, as if some people couldn't eat nightshades, as if some people didn't have issues from eating gluten or the phytates in the beans, as if some people couldn't digest very well, at the very least, pasteurized milk. None of that matters here, right? One size fits all, when we know it doesn't. Just because of that, you know this shit's unscientific. It's ludicrous. And then the fact that we're carnivorous omnivores and our best, most nutritious, most historic, our evolutionary, omnipresent, universal, global food, meat, is slowly being taken off the plate with every new permutation of this dietary hierarchy. I mean, that cannot be anything else but pseudoscientific. And I conducted my own scientific experiments to corroborate this, because that is exactly the way I ate, well, essentially my entire life. Except in my childhood, I consumed raw milk, right? I mean, even this recommended guideline tells you that processed foods are bad, right? Or not as good as foods in the raw form. So I consumed raw milk. I consumed pasture-raised chicken eggs, and the meat was of pretty good quality when I was a kid growing up. And I ate more of all of that than what this plate suggests, but everything else was basically the same. Now look, maybe I didn't eat much rice, or definitely not any quinoa, these exotic grains that did not come from where I came from, my family tree, right? And some of these exotic fruits were replaced with local varieties, right? But it was essentially the same, and if anything, well, I mean, better, because at the very least I was eating local foods and less processed, definitely. Which isn't to say that I didn't have a stint in college where I lived off beer and ramen noodles. That definitely did happen, and I have gotten drunk and smoked a little bit of nasty shit in my life here and there, but for the last 15 or so years, except for the last year of my life, so far anyway, don't get too excited, dear vegan, I've been essentially eating exactly as this plate tells me to, and guess what? It didn't work. Now, I mean, because I thought I was eating as healthfully as possible, I also thought I was as healthy as can be. And if there were any health issues, it wasn't definitely because of the diet. Because again, I thought I was eating as best as I can, even though I ate more meat than this plate suggests. And then I took out all the plants, at least for the first 3 months. And my massive back inflammation went away. My recurrent knee injuries haven't happened since. I sleep better now. My mood is far better. I'm a lot less irritable, a lot more mellow. And I gain muscle without increasing my workload. Are those not strong enough signals? Are those not good enough signals to let me know that, hey, I'm doing better? Whatever I was doing before, maybe it wasn't the worst way to eat, but whatever I'm doing now has to logically, scientifically be better, right? I mean, does a lion need to be told what to eat? Or does he just kind of figure it out? What about monkeys or giraffes? They eat something that doesn't sit well with them, right? They stop eating it. They go back to eating the stuff that does sit well with them. Isn't that how every animal figures it out? But no, the human being, the most intelligent animal on the planet, needs corporations to tell him how to eat. But we're supposedly smarter than pigs, chimps, or even ants, when they can figure that shit out, but we need help. Oh yeah, cite me some science, cite me some studies that I never participated in. Yeah, lay it on me, all the corrupt science you got that you don't even understand because you never even read it to begin with. Yeah, drop me some of those links, dear vegans. Because the scientific experiments that involve me, that I conducted on myself, controlled scientific experiments, well, those are invalid. Even though that's how we've always done it, right? So, long story short, I'm not saying that you're not going to feel good eating the way Canada tells you to. But I don't believe you're going to feel your best. You're going to think probably you're feeling your best because of cognitive bias and or ignorance. But until you truly start to tinker and experiment and figure it out for yourself, and I'm not saying my path should be yours, but until you conduct those scientific experiments on yourself, by yourself, you're never going to know what's best for you. You might luck out and just happen to be eating that sort of diet, but you're definitely not going to find that path listening to what these corporations whose interest is, well, making money, selling shit, food in this case. You're definitely not going to benefit from that approach because, well, the market is supposed to create the demand organically. And anytime you have this artificial demand created by the producer of the product, well, the consumer, it's not to say that he will necessarily suffer, but, well, your well-being or your best interest is definitely not of foremost importance here. And that should be obvious to any human being who can put 2 and 2 together, which isn't all that difficult. It's 4. Anyway, I'm going to make another video explaining the history of this food plate, put it into context, and show you exactly just how ludicrous it is and what it's motivated by. But for the time being, know this. If I were to eat, I don't know what you need to do. I don't know what's best for you. Only you can know that. And the only way you will ever know that is if you conduct all the necessary scientific experiments. Just because you start eating a certain way and you feel great for the time being, well, I mean, the experiment never ends, does it? So stick to it and be honest with yourself, and you'll figure it out eventually. But I know, for me, eating the way Canada says I should be eating, that's only going to ruin my health. I know that for a fact. So yes, Canada's dietary guidelines ruin my health. So hold all the planties. You could give me some here and there as a garnish, but double, triple, quadruple at the very least the meat intake, and keep it coming, baby. Keep it coming. That's what works for me, and this is a scientific fact. And yes, I cannot stress this enough. Even though they didn't exist at the time, definitely not in its current form, Canada's dietary recommendations ruined my health. Thanks for listening.